start with selective exposure, selective attention, and then selective retention. And that means that people pay attention to what really affects their life, and other issues gain less attention. So you cannot also determine for people what they feel affects their life and what doesn't affect their lives. What is more, that there's also this issue of people getting tired of certain things after some time. You're talking about Ministry of Agriculture failing to fulfill its obligation, because that's what it seems to mean. And if that is the case, you bring in Ministry of Livestock Development, people look at it and say, what's the difference between 6 and half a dozen? So they move on, and then they feel that the Samoa Agreement issue has some elements that affect their lives indirectly or directly. So that's why they're discussing it, and then you find a whole lot happening about that. Nigerians are waiting to see what will be the end result of this, what some have termed governance lubricant, because it's not really making a lot of sense when you're saying that you're carving out a unit from a ministry and making it a full-fledged ministry, when indeed, while saying you wanted to implement the civil rights area, you merged some this into one, saying you were saving costs, when indeed you already have probably 41 ministers. Now another minister will be coming on board, and you're telling Nigerians to buckle down. Of course, we have to make sacrifices. This is a time for us to be patient and then do things right. I think governance also means leadership with example. Nay, good governance means leadership with example. And if that is the case, the federal government and indeed President Bola Tinubu should come clean and clear and let Nigerians know that indeed I am for you, I am doing everything in your favor. Many steps he's taking are very, very commendable. For instance, instituting the case of this local government autonomy, fantastic. Saying that we must go back to the old national anthem, which is now the new national anthem, working on the psyche of Nigerians toward patriotism and making us to really feel that yes, this country belongs to us and we must do everything to make it work. Fantastic. But certain other areas also need attention. The president must pay attention to those areas too.
All right, let's hope, let's say the attention of Mr. President in areas that really, really matters. All right, a house to investigate between Osrc and IGP, I guess that's Police Service Commission, and the police. You find details of that on page 6 of the Daily Times this morning. Kogi Governorship Appeal Court affirms Ododo's election. You find it on page 8 of the Daily Times this morning. And so on the Daily Times, Tinubu to workers committed to just realistic minimum wage. Find that on the front page of the that's a commendable one. I find details of that on page 5 of the Daily Times this morning, and that will be all from the Daily Times.
Well, from the Daily Times, let's move to the Daily Trust newspaper. This morning, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, almost all dailies today are talking about the local government autonomy from the Supreme Court, and the Daily Trust newspaper is also leading with that particular story. Supreme Court verdict, local councils must now account for own actions, says Tinubu. Also amend constitution to get INEC conduct local government polls. That's coming from an ex-governor. All institutions must be respected, says Professor Yadudu. Governors would review decisions, says Soludo. You find details of the story on page 1, of course, spilling to of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The part that really strikes more is where President Tinubu is saying that local government must now account for own actions. Now you know, before it's difficult for you to say you EFCC is probing a local government chairman. Is it the local government chairman that has no say on any finances that you want to probe? What are you probing him for? But now, those who are elected as local government chairman must not know that, look, there's nothing you can do. You must be accountable financially, and administratively, you must now be accountable because your actions and inactions will count either for commendation
And
or
with
for
truth
condemnation.
of their closeness to the grassroots, we enable the citizens to really hold them to account. The distance between the local government secretariat and the different villages and towns attached or under it is not that far. They know you, they know your family, they know where you're from, and they could easily, put their agitations forward to the local government chairman, unlike when they have to decide on coming to a state capital, which may be far from where they stay.
Very well, but the citizenry must also now put on the toga of asking questions. This docility should be a thing of the past. You must always be able to ask questions. If you elected someone and then the person is not serving the purpose for his election or election, ask questions. In Nigeria, we've not seen a case of referendum recalling a representative or recalling someone elected. It's not really healthy for democracy. If somebody is not doing well, don't fold your arms and say, okay, until the next 4 years we'll vote him out. So you should wreak havoc for 4 years before you take action. I think that's another area that's very important in deepening our democratic practice. Now let's check more stories from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. You find this story: ex-power minister Maman remanded in correctional center. That's on page 12. Find that there. And quote Ganduje orders trial in absentia. That's on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. From the shores of Kenya, you find this one. Kenya's president dismisses almost entire cabinet. It's on page 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper. All right, Catholic bishops Ulama reject Samoa agreement. It's on page 10 of the Daily Trust newspaper of this morning. Let's check page 10 still. 250,000 naira minimum wage, unrealistic, Tinubu tells Labour. And on page 6, Governor Aliyu assents to law stripping Sultan of power to appoint district heads. Yeah, that's on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper of this morning. Akpabio Lawan clash over change to Senate plenary time. It's on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Check details of these stories and many more in the Daily Trust newspaper of this morning.
All right, let's see what's happening on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. We'll read. Executive order: drug makers seek clear timeline. Stable naira for 70% auction. Find details of that on page 8. Okay, right as to the story. Maintain non-implementation, hampering COIS placing order on importation of raw materials.
also leads with the issue of local government autonomy. As it says, local government financial autonomy, Supreme Court judgment throws up national debate. Tinubu, Atiku, Labour Party, others hail judgment. Will obey Apex Court verdict, says Soludo Otu. It's assault on true federalism, says Ibori. 50% of Nigeria's problems solved that come from Nolge. Lawyer, local government areas collected 9.28 5 years. You find details of those stories on page 4 of Leadership Friday. And Defense Headquarters alerts on plan to attack critical infrastructure. Let's be alert. You find that story on page 8 of Leadership Friday. And having to do with Ganduje and 7 others, as court says, to try Ganduje and 7 others in absentia. Find details of those stories on the Leadership Friday of today. Check it out there.
Alright, and on the Nigerian Tribune is this one, financial autonomy for local governments. Tinubu, Atiku, Argon, LP, Noge, others hail Supreme Court's judgment. Alright, you find details of that on pages 5 and 6 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And Adeleke reaffirms, and still on the Nigerian Tribune on page 4, court sets aside law deployed 12 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Blue economy, key to youth empowerment, Oyetola says. We find details of that on page 19 of the Nigerian Tribune. Okay, and before we leave the Nigerian Tribune, we still have the stories. Tinubu meeting with labor leaders, no deal yet on minimum wage, meeting to reconvene in 1 week. Right, you find details of that on page 11 of the Nigerian this morning. And all this on the Nigerian Tribune that we're seeing in all the newspapers.
Let's check the Guardian newspaper of this morning. The Guardian newspaper also has some issues leading with the main story of the day that's talking about the Supreme Court verdict on local government autonomy. You find details of that one on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. It crafts its own this way. Autonomy, why local instead of spending that much on maintenance. Cardozo links inflation to failed 10 trillion naira intervention funds. CBN overdraft. It's on page 15 from the business arena of the Guardian newspaper. And on page I think government needs to do something about that if that's the case, be reported as far as that is concerned. Of course, we've talked about the minimum wage debate and also the graft charges against Ganduje and wife, as well as others. Filthy abattoirs on hygienic meat processing spike dire health consequences. Concerns, rather, is what they put here. But then you find the details on pages 4 and 5. Now, that's coming at a time when we're concerned about cholera outbreak. I think 33 states of the Federation already have records of cholera outbreak. Ondo State is luckily not part of that list. But that does not mean that it's already guru. We must maintain hygienic practices so that we can escape the terrible claws of cholera. Now, if we are not even talking about cholera, we'll talk about other diseases that are also so that filthy environment can bring to our base area. So let's maintain hygiene at every point in time so that we can escape the clause of diseases. Of course, those are the details of the stories you find. Let's go to the sporting arena and check some stories there before we close up on this part of the show.
All right, checking the Sporting Sun this morning. NFF contacts have rendered to coach Super Eagles. Swansea R7 2023-2024 season, one of my best, who says so. Check the front page of the Sporting Sun for details of that story.
That does it on this segment, taking a look at stories making headlines in the national dailies. Of course, we've checked almost all the national dailies of today, the 12th day of July 2024. Check details of those stories and many others that we couldn't take this morning, and then find details in those dailies. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll be a searchlight on journalism in Nigeria, the past, the present, and the future. Please do join us then.
As we are all aware, this is also the year for our governorship election. Expectedly, political activities will gain prominence as we march towards the election. However, let me implore all political parties, aspirants, and their followers to eschew violent conduct that can threaten the peace and tranquility of our state, and ensure that they follow strictly the guidelines issued by the electoral umpire. The election should be a contest of ideas and choices, and not an opportunity to settle political scores or an excuse for calumny.
earlier stated, before that break, I did say we'll be taking a cursory look at journalism, the past, the present, and the future. We'll be joined for the conversation by the Administrative Secretary, Ondo State Ministry of Information and Orientation, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Nishile. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, I'd like to start by congratulating you for the many years you spent in journalism and information management. And I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you so much.
Of course, we get to that level of conversation as we go on in this aspect of the discussion. I'd like to know, from the benefit of hindsight, drinking from the fountain of experience, what has it been like, journalism in the past 30 years? What is it like now? And what are the things you miss about journalism of the olden days compared to now?
Thank you so much. Journalism in itself is encompassing. I target a noble profession. The profession that allows you to express your view and be a mouthpiece to the helpless. To the one that has mouth and is speaking and cannot be heard. So, it's a profession to humanity. Journalism, in its sense, can be termed to be the gathering, collection of information, the process, and you disseminate to the public. The way of dissemination is what has changed. The basic concept hasn't. The way of processing has definitely changed. In the olden days, even before I joined the profession, by God's grace, I've put in over 30 years of my life into the profession. But then, as we were told, and when I was young, the main way or process of disseminating information is to the town crier. You will know that. And for everyone to hear the latest in town, you either go to the traditional ruler's palace or the square, the market square, or the center square.
Also, you hear the gong.
Then, yeah, we still have it.
Of course.
And you get to the Deji's palace at the museum, it's still there. I miss it. Because at least when you hear that, everywhere will be still, irrespective of who you are, at least you want to be informed. And then, it means that human beings, we yearn for information. And that information gives us a lot of benefits. And whatsoever we get out of it will bring the consequences. And so in the olden days, people needed to be informed. And that would take me to even the advantages of this so-called the gong that you're talking about, that I miss a lot. For people to be informed, if there is anything to be passed across to the people, the town crier will go around the community, left, right, and center, back and front, to get the people, not to be informed by the town crier, but to get the attention of the people to the announcement. That takes you to another dimension, adverts. And so, the town crier will tell them so time and so dates. You are to meet at the traditional ruler's palace or at the market square for an important information. And I bet you, irrespective of who you are, you want to listen and you want to be there, because you will not want a second-hand information. And that can be dangerous. I'll get there.
Communication fidelity.
Yes. And so, those are the days, even before I was born. But then, as time goes on, people assume human beings who we are, that there must be room for improvement.
Very well.
And so, the invention of printing press. I don't want to mention the names of the papers now, but people can now be informed via radio, which is the most, extensively used to communicate to people. Either you can read or you can't. You can hear. You'll be well informed prior to reading, and it goes a long way. But let me stop at this junction to tell you the merit and the dismerit of the town crier and the way when you meet at the Baba's Palace. If you are not there, you may not get the actual message
Accurately.
And accuracy goes a long way in information dissemination. And so it was better you were there. So if you are in your firm, even though if it is not that urgent, you must have been told today the announcement will be made, probably in the next 48 hours you are to meet. But if it is an urgent one, and some of the people that come to their farms, they may not hear the accuracy of the message. And so that takes us to this other one that said, with the advent of the printing press, you now have the newspapers, you have the radio, and you have the television.
Of course, if I leave you, keep going on and on, but I need to cut in at this point because there will still be very many other things we need to talk about. I need you to juxtapose that period with what currently obtains. Now, let's use that as a yardstick in weighing, measuring the performance of the information arm of government anywhere in the world. But looking at it in Nigeria, it's called the National Orientation Agency. It's supposed to also percolate the grassroots. What's your assessment of its performance in information dissemination to the grassroots?
That's loaded. For that particular arm, the government is trying. The officers too are doing their best. But in every facet of life, there is always room for improvement. What we now have, the life to the people at the grassroots are not really getting it the way it should. Reason, the advent of now telling stories and that has really gone. You will now discover that even the social media has taken over. And for the people at the grassroots, even when they have phone, will the network be okay? And if the network is okay, will there be money to buy the data? So those are the constraints that do not allow or not give room for adequacy of information dissemination at the grassroots.
Yeah.
Okay?
We know you're loaded with more to tell us, but let's look at the pluralism of the media. For instance, in Nigeria now we now have multi radio stations. Even in Accra metropolis alone, you can count a number of them. We have different radio stations, different print outlets, and the television as well. How has this helped, professionalism in journalism? Because there was sometime last year, a journalist wrote about how there is unprofessionalism in the practice, because just many people, came in on the ship of journalism, and some of the practices are not ethical. What's your say on that?
I want to tell you, if we have radio station at each street, is not an outrageous of a thing. The reason, people needed to be informed. When I came in, I had one of the presenters talking about his reflex action was doing that to tell people how to take care of the environment. Because there was a story, I'm not sure, but she was talking about the outbreak of cholera in over 30 states of the Federation. And God helping us in those states. We've not contacted it, and by God's grace, it will not get to us. And to those ones that have already gotten it, the Lord will see them too. So, the professionalism had to be very, very addressed. Each one needed to be very thorough about whatsoever we do, particularly in journalism. The reason being that information is vital. It has to be it has to be, you know, timely, actual, and that will get to the people on time. Because if, for instance, a drug needed to be taken at 6 o'clock, and the person to take it didn't get the message until 9, I bet you, what do you expect? Your guess is as good as mine. But then, there are still not many people in that profession. And having a lot of the organizations within that vicinity, I want to count us a lot. Yeah, I don't need to, I'm not blowing that trumpet, and if I do, other people should not come and blow it for us. Ondo State is known for excellence and giving the best in all of the professions. You were talking about cholera not getting to us. That means a lot of measures have been put in place even before now on having our environment very clean. You would note that at the last Saturday of each month, information will go around to tell people to be up and doing in keeping the environment. And so a radio station will say it, a television station will say it will be in the papers. And so even in the Bible says, faith cometh by hearing. Whatsoever you hear and keep hearing, the psychologist says after 19 days, it becomes your habit.
Now, let's move ahead and also look at how bothered you are about infringements of the rights and freedom of journalists. There are many concerns being raised about the lawful arrest and detention of some journalists across the country, and this is really spurring lots of debate. How bothered are you about that?
It's worrisome. And as good as the profession is, and as good as the professionals are dishing it out as it should be, the journalists are most vulnerable. In the course of being the best and giving their best to their society, they get arrested. Because the profession is about saying the truth. Irrespective of how you say it, the truth must be told to the people. And I want to tell you, in the Nigerians of today, some quarters may not like the truth being told by journalists. And so that comes about their vulnerability of being arrested, being detained. But it's my prayer that we'll get there, that we are doing a lawful job. We should be commended for it, rather than being harmed.
How do we then enhance this practice? And that's a multi-pronged issue, because I'm expecting that you'll be looking at it from the angle of the professionals and also the enabling legislation that will also aid them. So how well do you think we could enable journalism practice in Nigeria?
As a matter of fact, each one should be on his or her toes. If I must tell you, you are aware that the AI is taking over. That's already taken over. And so whosoever that is in the profession and is not up to the tax will be shown the way out naturally. And so the onus is on each person, on each professional, to get to know the latest equipment to be used and to be out to give out the best. Because naturally, the unprofessional, the unjournalistic personnel will be shown the way out.
Alright, now you've spent over 30 years in journalism, you're a woman. I want to look at how easy was it for the practice, for women. You have a lot of things to consider as a woman, and to have a career like this, that sometimes you have to be at the office, even on a night shift and all that. So how can women, bring up their best in the practice of journalism?
I want to say, to God be the glory. It has not been easy, but that doesn't mean it's not attainable. I am a woman helped by God. God has helped me a lot, and is still helping me. I've received His mercy in so numerous ways. But then, to that profession, or which any other profession, as we're saying, even you will notice that even before this discussion, on here, we're saying women are vulnerable. Very, very. But then with determination, getting it from the onset that you want to make a name for yourself. I don't believe anything is impossible. It has to do with planning. When I was called for this program, and I asked the person on the other hand, that who told him that I should be here before 8 or around 8, and I asked who told him I'm an early riser. He smiled. I said, wouldn't I? And I said, no. By God's grace, I will call between 3 and 4 each day.
The act of practice, is it due to the profession?
Even before the profession, and I thought, okay, when I was in school, I went to SUAO, the then Ondo State University. You read that, and so. Then after when I finished, I discovered I was not sleeping. I'm having a cousin that that is a medical personnel. He said I shouldn't take anything, I should sleep. And I'm reading some things on here. You learn and you unlearn. We're told we should have about 6, 8 hours. Is it possible? Then, the home front had to maintain the job had to be done and adequately. I've said everything has to, be by planning and with good grace. Because in my home, the breakfast is served is eaten on or before 7. My children went to Idris. And you should know, you should get to Idris. Sorry?
So let's now come to.
Thank you so much.
Let's come to the 30-something years you've put into the service, into journalism, and then the service of Ondo State government. How worthwhile has it been? Wow, it's worth the trouble. It's worth the trouble. So it came with some trouble, but it's worth the trouble.
It's worth the trouble. I want to tell you that when there is no to every champion, ask them, there are battles to be fought and won. And no one wins outside of God. It's worth the trouble. It gets tougher. The higher you go, I bet you it's not as cooler as it used to be said. But then, with God on one side and with determination to make a name, to put one's own quota to the development of the state, it's worth the trouble.
What are the lessons, the greatest of the lessons? Because I know you cannot enumerate all of the lessons there, but what particular lesson or lessons stood out for you in your almost over 3 decades in service?
Endurance.
Endurance?
And perseverance. The Yoruba has a saying that if you are determined to give the best and to have a legacy, irrespective of the storm, you use them as a stepping stone to achieving that which task has been given to them. And those are the things that helped.
All right, those are the things that helped your endurance, patience, and perseverance, you said. But earlier on, when you were answering my previous questions, you mentioned that there is need for balance, from all front and the job. But as a woman, there are times that you have this clash, your duty clashing with domestic engagements. How do you untangle them? Because at the office you hear your job is most important, and outside of office you hear your family is most important. So as a woman, how do you solve the confusion of which comes first?
place the two or all, because I want to tell you to the church or whichever your religion takes part of it too. I've told you I'm a woman helped by God, so I must give God his own. But then, as I earlier said, I'm determined. Then, far back when my children were young, I don't go to parties. The reason, I can't leave them at home. And we can't go together. And so, I may have to go earlier when I'm less busy, because relationship too matters. I may not attend the party, but I must have been there to see a friend, or whosoever that is the celebrant, to do one thing or the other behind the scene. And at the upfront, I remember a particular scenario. At the emergence of a particular administration, all of a sudden, just at the management, we were told there was going to be a meeting. But then, at the weekend, or probably once a month or thereabouts, at the weekend, when you see me cooking in the house, you will think we want to have a party. Then I will dish a litter that will be okay, or whatsoever dish that will be okay per menu for my household. Call it egusi, vegetable, and like that, put in the freezer. You ask me when the light was good.
And when the burger was good as well, because...
And you know, when you buy in bulk, it helps the economy. Yes. So, I'll dish. And when I'm going out, I'll put each one out. It will thaw before my arrival. And they know in my house. As I'm coming, I'll go to the kitchen straight, put everything in the fire, and I'll run to undress and to finish the cooking. And so this particular day, we were told there was going to be a meeting. Wow. Around past 4, what do? I ran home. Thank God for vehicle. Warmed the stew and got it. Then there was another one. One of my children was about 5. I went to an assignment. I was then in the field. I went to an assignment. I never knew. I got there about an assignment, and I didn't come back. I didn't get home until around 7. And I ate around between 6 and 7 in my house. I didn't bring anything out because I thought I was going to get vegetable and do it. What my son did was, my first son, he saw me doing it. So immediately I got in, he said, "Mom, I'm sorry. What happened?" He said, "Please, don't beat me. I'm sorry." "Okay, I won't beat you. What happened?" I was scared, thinking, okay, I saw the house, it wasn't burnt. Okay, thank God. He got in, add dry pepper. He added melon, egusi.
So you stepped into the situation.
I'm telling you, he added vegetable oil, not palm oil.
Okay, like, because of time, so that, of course.
I only came to prepare the lunch. It was so sweet.
Now, before we let you go, let me quickly know, what would you love to be remembered for in the Ministry of Information and Orientation? What has been your impact in your stay in that ministry now that you're, of course, retiring?
Professionalism. Commitment to the work. That irrespective of whatsoever, how difficult it may be, it can be achieved.
It can be achieved. Congratulations once again. We wish you very successful, fruitful, and fulfilling retirement, and may your strength never wane. Congratulations. We will go on a break now, and when we return, we'll be taking a closer look at some other issues having to do with society. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
As we are all aware, this is also the year for our governorship election. Expectedly, political activities will gain prominence as we march towards the election. However, let me implore all political parties, aspirants, and their followers to eschew violent conduct that can threaten the peace and tranquility of our state and ensure that they follow strictly the guidelines issued by the electoral umpire. The election should be a contest of ideas and choices and not an opportunity to settle political scores or an excuse for calumny. As we are all aware, this is also the year for our governorship election. Expectedly, political activities will gain prominence as we march towards the election. However, let me implore all political parties, aspirants, and their followers to eschew violent conduct that can threaten the peace and tranquility of our state and ensure that they follow strictly the guidelines issued by the electoral umpire. The election should be a contest of ideas and choices and not an opportunity to settle political scores or an excuse for calumny.
Everyone, of course, it's still AM Today on this channel, and at this point we're talking about the judiciary and democratic development in Nigeria. We've been joined by barrister at law and political scientist. I'm talking about Mr. Felix Alonge. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now let's start with the role of the judiciary in enhancing and deepening democratic practice in Nigeria. Many have also described the judiciary as a last hope of the common man. Has the judiciary been able to really live up to expectation in that line?
Thank you. In a democratic setting, in which you have separation of powers, you have the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. And Nigeria being a federal system based on the principle of separation of powers, the role of the judiciary is so fundamental to protect the interests of the citizenry, because citizens are expected to enjoy certain fundamental rights, and also the court is to protect the institution of government at various levels of governance in Nigeria. You have the federal, the state, and the local government. And the constitution, which is the ground norm, has no meaning or reinterpretation until the pronouncement of the courts. And that is why those of us who are in the area of law, that the letters of the Constitution has no meaning until judicial pronouncement. And that is why the role of the judiciary, that is the courts, vis-a-vis the judges, is so important, so fundamental for the enthronement of democracy, for the enjoyment of the rights of the citizens. There have been who's and cry about the performance of the judiciary, but so far so good. They have done well. The areas in which they have not done well is as a result of societal influence. Try to color the mindset of the judges because they are part of Nigerian society, and there are two ways you can operate outside your society. But in real sense of it, our judges, they have done so well to ensure that there is social order within the society, and that the machinery of government is tailored towards fulfilling the yearnings and aspirations of the people based on constitutional provisions. But that notwithstanding, the areas that they have not done well is, as I've already said, is as a result of the societal pressures on them.
Okay, let's look at it this way. You said the Constitution has no value until a pronouncement of a judgment.
Yes.
Right? Does that mean that is why we have, and we've seen instances in Nigeria where there is a particular judgment in court A, then another on the same matter in Judge B, contradictory judgments. Does that mean that definition or interpretation of the Constitution is at the discretion of the judges?
It is not that the judgment is at the discretion of the judges. No. The issue now is that it is what a litigant or an applicant brought before the court, the facts and evidences, that will determine the pronouncement of the judges. The judge will not descend to the arena to defend you. And that is why sometimes, the judges of the court are perverting the cause of justice. It's not. There is no way two cases can have the same ingredients. But in the eyes of ordinary people, this person did the election, the court has given judgment in favor of this particular person, and the same, but out of the presentation, your legal representation, the person that have asked, how has it done due diligence in prosecuting your own case? And the way the public see it, you look at the sentimental view in judging, making pronouncement or saying things about the judge, or that this judge maybe has collected money or is being corrupt. That why is this judgment different from this particular judgment? But that does. The judges or justices are also free, given contradictory rulings or pronouncements, and which is not good for our democracy. You see court of coordinate jurisdiction, giving conflicting rulings, pronouncements, which is not to the best interest of the masses. And that is why you see then thorough shopping of
yes. to a layman would think that there's ambiguity, in the Constitution, just like the Holy Books. A pastor can interpret a particular verse this way, then another denomination is interpreting the same way in another way. And so, where is that? Why can't that ambiguity, or be removed?
That is why, you are in court A, the other person is court B. The pronouncement or the judgment of the ruling of a particular court, a particular judge, depends on the presentation, the evidence and facts, and the level of intelligence of a particular legal practitioner, the person that is presenting your case. And that is why it is due diligence and the ability to be able to present your case that in most cases means you to win. That's why I say the best lawyer wins in most cases. That's why people look for brilliant lawyers with sound experience to be able to handle their cases. And at the end of the day, the public will not be happy. Oh, why is this particular, why is the judgment in this way? It is what is before the court that the court will make pronouncement upon. But the unfortunate aspect is that the corruption within the society has actually crept into the judicial setting. There's no doubt about it. Nobody can debate it. That one is a fact, and it's also affecting the generator of society. But when like what has happened yesterday now concerning the local government autonomy, is something that the court has actually come to help Nigerian society, because what has transpired in the last 20 years since 1999, governance at the state level not allowing the local government to function have been detrimental to the development of this nation, because the political aspect of any nation is so important to determine the economic prosperity of any nation. And that is why Nkrumah said that seek ye first the political kingdom, and other things shall follow suit. It is the political recruitment which is based on openness, accountability, and truthfulness that will bring in men of integrity into political leadership. And that is why people are even saying that the issue of granting financial autonomy to local government is not even sufficient. What of even the process of electing them? Can you twist the hand of your principal? It's not possible. And that is the aspect is also very, very critical, to ensure that, the local government is actually going to allow is going to function properly. But what the judiciary have done yesterday, it has actually ensured that Nigerian society is going to witness a different mode of development. People are saying, we have based on the principle of federalism, we are going to have 2 tiers. That is the theory propounded by Professor Williams at that part, in his own society, and based on the peculiarity of his own society at that particular time. You cannot. Professor Williams is almost about 200 or 300 years ago that the man died, and the peculiarity of what we have in Nigeria, and since 1976, the 3 tiers of governance have been allowed to be in operation, and it's also recognized.
Because of our time, let's move ahead and look at the fact that the rule of law remains the nucleus of democratic practice, exactly, without which there's no democracy. Yes. Now you find situations where the court gives a judgment, and you also find disobedience to court pronouncement and judgment.
Exactly.
Does that not render the judiciary as a toothless barking dog? Why is it that aftermath of such isn't also looked into? That if there's a court judgment to obey, no neck. For instance, you're referring to yesterday's Supreme Court judgment. What if some people decide to go against such pronouncements? We've had many cases in this country where you find pronouncements from the courts and they are not respected. What became of them?
The enforcement of judicial pronouncement is by the executive. Mm-hmm. And because of coloration, sometimes it's always difficult for the enforcement of those judgments or rulings, because the power that be is displaying executive despotism.
As a way, despotism.
As a way of actually protecting their own interest. And it is very, very unfortunate for this country. We are all suffering from disobedience of court orders. And the court is a resolver and is a defender of the Constitution. Though the court has their own problem, but that notwithstanding, whether the court judgment is okay or not okay, it is imperative for the parties concerned to obey. If you are not satisfied, you can appeal the ruling or judgment or go to the same court for a review of the pronouncement of the judgment of the court. But what do our people do? Either they disobey or they now follow shopping, go to court of coordinate jurisdiction to file the same cause of action, or going outside the judicial division of where the cause of action actually happened. And issue happened in Ondo State. Instead of suing those that are concerned, their federal parties, they will not maybe go to Lagos, or because they know that either in Lagos or Kaduna or Cross River, they are likely to have sympathetic judges who are going to make rulings or pronouncement to favor them. And this is a serious problem for our democracy, for our development. And without the rule of law, there can never be general development in this country, in any society. The rule of law is so fundamental to the development of any nation. Why is the US making progress? Why is the UK making progress? It is because people hold on to the tenets of the rule of law.
All right. For a society like ours in Nigeria here, where people no longer respect, most times we see a flagrant disobedience to the rule of law. People, even negative, like you said, are meant to
enforce the law.
To enforce the law. We've seen them also hearing in this aspect. I mean, not following court orders, judgments, and all that. So in a society like Nigeria, where things are like this, what is the way forward?
The way forward now, arising from Mr. President, leadership. Immediately it came subscribing to the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, and that this is the way out. Based on this, that, and at the same time, his body language. I know all the governors, the political gladiators, they are going to key into it. But if Mr. President had been a waiting game, not making any pronouncement about, maybe one or two guys, okay, there's a way of trying to, maybe we can maneuver this thing, and this disobedience of court judgment or court ruling is not at the level of government alone, even what of individuals who use their personal position to oppress people at their local level. Because a particular rich man oppressing is maybe somebody working with him, there is his entitlement, and court gives a ruling of judgment. But who is going to enforce? The law enforcement gets to be enforced. Maybe somebody behind the scene. You know what behind the scene? This issue of not obeying the court order is not at the level of government alone. It's also at the level of individuals. It's at the level of individuals, which is very, very precarious to the development.
For me, and that will be my last area of questioning or conversation with you on this matter. I'd like to have your assessment of the role of the judiciary in the fight against corruption in Nigeria. How well has it been able to perform that role? Many have also raised accusing fingers or pointed accusing fingers to the judiciary as not having done enough. Some hail the judiciary as having championed the war against fraud and corruption in Nigeria. What's your take?
The issue of corruption is a societal problem that permeates every sector and every individual in this country. To some extent, the issue of judiciary being corrupt is not as the way public feel it is today, because there's what is internal vigilance now. internal vigilance is the price of liberty. And it is no longer for any judicial officer to engage in corrupt practices, because the third eye that is watching them now is at work, so that it is no longer business as usual. The CJN said about 2 or 3 days ago that all the judges or justices that are giving conflicting court rulings or judgment, they are going to be dealt with, that a committee will be set up to look into it. And you now know that it affects their promotion, it affects their preferment. It is no longer as usual, and now the promotion is not based on the number of cases that they are able to resolve, not that on the number of years that we spend nowadays. So that is why there is some level of integrity and sanity and due diligence in the prosecution in dispensation of justice in Nigeria today. But the issue of corruption, it has to be fought holistically. And thank God that the president we have now, and the way things are being done now, we don't have choice to, the only thing that we have to ensure that every one of us have to fight issue of the corruption. The civil society has a lot of role to play. They have to be very vigilant. The whistleblower has his own role to play. Every individual has his own role to play to ensure that, the system is actually working. The rule of law is allowed to work.
Well, is there anything that can be done to check the negative effect of plea bargaining in the fight against corruption in Nigeria?
The issue of plea bargaining, if somebody has maybe, if there's a plea bargaining, the essence of plea bargaining, one is to fast track the process of judicial dispensation and to save time, to save cost. If somebody maybe behind the scenes he pleaded guilty and is remorseful, and that's okay, it is true that I've committed this offense. That's what we call ADR, alternative dispute resolution, and which is even the best as far as the type of society that we are in now.
But in Nigeria, you see someone who has allegedly, maybe embezzled. Let me make it small now, like
yes.
10 million naira, and then comes with a plea bargain of 100,000. I mean, how does that help? Is it not encouraging some other people who are still in the system to think, I will steal, and then they already get stated that, after all, if I'm going to, have a plea bargain of so amount, then let me steal this time. So I still have profit.
Why it is still, plea bargain is still good for somebody that's maybe supposedly guilty, is that in most cases it is difficult to prove and make pronouncement that person is guilty in the law court, because the court will have to depend, the judge will depend what is evidence. When you say somebody is corrupt and you don't have credible documented evidence, you don't have credible facts to prove that person has actually committed that offense. He has committed that offense, but no evidence in terms of document to show, and to show the transaction that he has actually committed that particular offense. Like what? At the end of the day, when the court now discovered that you don't have verifiable evidence or documents to actually nail the person, and the court will say, because you are not proved it beyond reasonable doubt. Any criminal offense must be proved beyond reasonable doubt, not balance of probability. If it's a civil matter, you're based on balance of probability. It may be or it may not be. But as far as criminal case is concerned, it must be proved beyond reasonable doubt. The slightest element of doubt must not be there. And the moment there's element of doubt, that person will be discharged and acquitted by the courts. So that most cases will say that when we blame courts, it is not the courts that is the problem. It is the parties involved that has not actually done what's supposed to be done. And in most cases, you discover that some litigants even abandon their cases in courts, not even coming. Because they know that it is true that somebody has offended them, it is true that somebody has cheated them, but they don't have credible evidence before the court for them to prove their case. At the end of the particular judge is corrupt, a particular judge is corrupt. It is not like that. Though we have some bad eggs among them, but things are working better. And the CGM, Arwola, is virtually on the net. The NJC is on their net. The lawyer also, the disciplinary council that also ensure that that it's no longer business as usual. I think things are moving forward, and to the glory of God, our democracy is actually in action.
Of course, we have to thank you so much for those views you've expressed on the role of the judiciary in enhancing democratic development in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Felix.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Because this is where we say a very big thank you to everyone for being part of the Outlook this morning. It's been, of course, an engaging engagement since the beginning up till now, and we thank you for being a part of it. From my colleague,
thank God it's Friday, so I think for most people it marks the end of the work for the week. So enjoy your weekend.
Of course, let's do this again Monday morning, God willing. I am Sunday Kolawole. Please enjoy your weekend. Good one.